Hi everyone, welcome back. It is Monday and we are here again. Um, all right, I won't be able to add pictures again today. This week is the weekend and this week are going to be a little hectic and it takes surprisingly long to add them. And it was just making me get behind. Now, if you tell me that you would rather me post every other day and do pictures, then I will. But I just found that it was making me, like I went 2 days and didn't even post because I didn't have a chance to do pictures. So then finally I just posted it without pictures because I wasn't going to have a chance to do it. And I felt like, well, it's better to post something than nothing. So, but you tell me if you can live without pictures or if you would rather not watch it at all. If there's no pictures, let me know. Okay. I did my nails this weekend and they're one is so crooked. Now on here it looks like it's this one, but it's actually this one. And I don't know about the color. It's like I was calling it maple leaf red because it's a little orangey. That's my favorite thing about having nails. Anyway, I usually just do like a nude. So I'm having a hard time. Do you think they're tacky? Like normally I just do like a nude, like a skin tone, a light blush. But I just thought, let's just try it. But I don't know. All right. So I've had 2 people comment to me about what they want to read next. So 2's enough. Honestly, 1 was enough. After I saw 1, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So we're going, where is it? Oh, it's right beside me. We're going to do, look at that little bugger. He was up here on the weekend. Look at that. That's the rabbit. Oh my gosh, what a stinker. He got up on my desk. Okay, anyway, he left the text, so that's good. We're going to start with The Royals by Kitty Kelly, because let me tell you, it's juicy. And I don't think there's so many names. Like, honestly, it would take me 10 years to add pictures, but if you are desperate for pictures, you tell me, and I will post every other day. But if you just want content, if you just want to be able to listen, then I'll just go ahead and read. One other thing. I did have a little bit of a complaint last week that sometimes I talk too much. Now, I appreciate constructive criticism, but I will say these are not audiobooks, like I'm just doing this for fun. It's not my job, obviously. So think of it less like an audiobook and more like book club. And what do you do at book club? You go, you read, you discuss a text, you have some snacks, you have some tea or coffee, sometimes wine, and you yip yap about things in the middle, like it's not just about the book. So, I will sometimes get off track, but I always try to bring it back around. And I love videos like that. Like everyone that I watch, they also kind of yap on the side. So I get that some people don't like it. It's such a part of my personality that I don't think I'm even going to attempt to stop. If I get a lot of comments or everyone's like, please stop talking and just read, then maybe I will consider. But as for the moment, I'm like, I'm not inclined to make a big change. But like I said, I'm open. If that's what everyone wants across the board, then I will do my best. The other thing is that a subscriber commented, and I don't know her first name, but I think her username is RC Lee, and I think she's around my mom's age, just because of things that we've chatted about before. So Actually, most of my viewers are around my mom's age, so I love that. I'm very close to my mom, so it makes sense to me. Um, and she said that when I mentioned that in the book, it said that Sarah's dad called her Ginger Bush, and I was like, oh, comment about her pubic hair, and I was appalled. But she said that, like, when she was growing up and in her generation, like, bush didn't always mean your nether regions. It could also mean, like, if you had like bushy, like curly hair, it could be called that as well, more often than the other. You know, and she also, I think it's a she. If you are a gentleman, then I apologize, but I'm just guessing. That wait, oh yes, the word gay was used to mean like happy, or just like the film The Gay Divorcee. So yes, and I always appreciate that. I always appreciate gaining more context. So I love those comments. So keep them coming. Hold on, I gotta check on the rabbit. He is chewing too much and it's concerning me. 1 second. Okay. We're just gonna let him go to town. So we just have this much left. We're getting through it fast, I think. The next book is, I don't know if it's really, yeah, it is bigger, but it's so gossipy, and it has, a couple sections of pictures, so I don't think it's going to be any hard read or, tough time to get through. Okay, we are going to begin this section entitled A Knight of the Garter. Even though he had left the Navy, Andrew continued to receive honorary appointments. In February 2004, he had been made an honorary captain, and in 2006 was appointed Commodore-in-Chief of the Fleet Air Arm. In June of that year, he and Prince Edward were made Knights of the Garter, with the Duchess at her first official royal appearance in 14 years, and their daughters in attendance. That month, he was asked to represent the British monarchy at King Bhumibol's Diamond Jubilee celebrations in Bangkok. Andrew had fixed a holiday in Vietnam prior to the engagement, so I didn't realize that people holidayed in Vietnam. So requested a private jet to bring his entourage. The party established themselves at the Grand Hyatt, Erawan, where Andrew's room service demands soon came to the attention of Andrew McGregor Marshall, Reuters Thailand correspondent who had friends and connections in the hotel. During his short stay, more than 40 women were brought to his room. Often, as one left, another would arrive. Hotel staff were amazed, and they are used to foreigners bringing girls to their room, but more than 10 a day were going to Andrew's room. And this was all juggled amid official engagements. Marshall added, explaining their provenance, the stories simply came up in conversation because they were genuinely amazed by it. While Andrew was there, a son of Prince Khalifa bin Salman Al Khalifa of Bahrain was also in Bangkok for the event, staying at the Oriental Hotel. Once each heard they were both in town, the two princes began sending their favorite girls to each other as a friendly gesture. Like, I'm going to lose my lunch. Ian Proud, serving in the embassy at the time, hosted Andrew on 4 occasions, twice on official business and twice private visits, and got to know him well. He thought Thai hospitality staff were unlikely to have been amazed when it came to stories of bacchanalian exploits. Royals putting it about, given Thailand's feudal, stratified society and history of polygamy or polyamorous men, suggests that this would have been seen as entirely commonplace and as to be expected. Indeed, they might have been surprised had he been otherwise. Proud remembers on the first official visit in early 2005, after the Indian Ocean tsunami, Andrew being introduced to the political section. The Duke showed no interest in the male diplomats, nor the 3 older Thai female members of staff, preferring to focus on Lois Abbott, an attractive blonde in her 30s. One of her colleagues had just been recalled. having been arrested on a plane, high on a mix of whiskey and antidepressants, abusing passengers. Andrew was thrilled by the story. I once knew a Royal Navy officer who was court-martialed for grabbing Margaret Thatcher's arse, he said. Proud had heard stories of Andrew belittling staff by making jokes and pulling pranks, including ordering that a junior diplomat's place setting and chair be removed at a resident's dinner when that officer briefly stepped out of the room. He concluded that it was a coping mechanism because the Duke did not have anything interesting to offer to a conversation. The jokes and general narcissism were a protective layer Andrew hid behind. They stopped him being exposed as a bit thick and boring during more open-ended conversation. I would disagree. I would say that his antics are what has made me think that he is slow. Thick. Because what adult man is behaving like this? If he had just learned to be a good listener and learned how to ask questions. But the problem is that Andrew couldn't be interested in anyone other than himself, unless it was a good-looking woman. And then he wasn't actually interested in her. He just, had an end game in mind. But if you don't feel that you are very smart or that you're very good at conversation, the best thing you can learn how to do is be a great listener and learn how to ask follow-up questions. And he just, man, I think he's as dumb as a post. Okay. I heard of him once boring guests virtually to tears with a serious tale about the failings of the traffic light system in Westminster, said Proud. On his second visit, Andrew refused an invitation to stay at the residence in favor of the presidential suite at the Hyatt. This required a bit of negotiation, as other royal parties also wanted to book it. Not least because Spasso, the dance club in the basement, was one of the Duke's favorite pickup joints. Proud recalls Andrew also having a favored companion, a high society Thai lady who was in another relationship, and that she accompanied the Duke to his next destination, Chiang Mai. They went together in the ceremonial cavalcade to Bangkok Airport and also returned together from the city of Chiang Mai. It caused embarrassment because she stayed in his official car when he went back to the Hyatt to collect his team before leaving Thailand. After he had gone up to his room, the lady waited in the reception area for a short while until her boyfriend came to collect her. The lover was Sonia Cooling, a half-Thai model, actress, and television personality who later produced and hosted Thailand's Next Top Model. Born in 1974, she had gone to school in England before studying German at University of College London and business at the European Business School. In 1999, she had been voted Thailand's sexiest woman by FHM, second in Asia, and 3 years later won Best Actress in a lead role at the TV Gold Awards, the Thai Television Awards, for her appearance in the series Maya. Andrew returned privately twice more to see Cooling. Andrew's driver would often gossip about his important guest, revealing it was not just women who would be invited to a party with the Duke. He also had a thing for effeminate young men in their 20s. The Duchess's increasingly bizarre behavior was also beginning to attract attention. At a charity party thrown by the Beckhams, rumored to have cost £500,000, a guest reported that she certainly seemed to be, shall we say, refreshed. She was hurling herself around the dance floor, trying to dance like Beyoncé Knowles. Bea was rolling her eyes with embarrassment. The Duchess then tried to chat up David Beckham before latching onto a good-looking security guard, who ran off pretty quickly. I felt so sorry for Bea having to watch all this. It was like she was the mature one and Sarah was the teenager. The Duchess had then approached Victoria Beckham, asking, "You must tell me your diet secrets. I need to lose some weight." Like, girl, get back on Weight Watchers. You've got the diet secret. Ugh. Sarah had recently undergone work with a New York-based celebrity dermatologist, Dr. Lookgood, who offered non-surgical treatments, including Botox, collagen, skin-smoothing lasers, and, at 300 pounds, a bio-nutritive luxury cream at his Rejuvenation Center on Madison Avenue. There was also speculation that she had opted for a mini facelift after the crow's feet around her eyes disappeared and her lips looked plumper. She had also undergone teeth whitening, been treated by celebrity cosmetic surgeon Dr. Jean-Louis Sibal, whose clients included Madonna, Elle Macpherson, and actress Meg Ryan, and consulted the testosterone queen, Dr. Cecilia Tregear, whose specialty was making women feel and look younger. Much of this was in preparation for Beatrice's 18th birthday party, a lavish costume ball at Windsor Castle for 500, with dinner for 250 earlier, reputed to have cost £400,000. The theme was 1888, to mark the fact that Beatrice had been born a century later. She wore a 10,000-pound dress that had been designed by Marcheska, the New York fashion house established by Georgina Chapman, wife of Harvey Weinstein. Weinstein was one of the guests, who were entertained by tarot card readers, contortionists, and later by the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, alongside Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, Demi Moore, Kelly and Jack Osborne, Pixie Geldof, Tanya Breyer, David and Karina Frost, the Queen, Prince Charles, Camilla, and Princes William and Harry did not attend. Andrew spent much of the evening with Angie Everhart. The Duchess was also promoting her own collection of fake diamond jewelry, with the proceeds going to the Sarah Ferguson Foundation for Children, and she was working with Todd Morley, a millionaire Wall Street banker, on a joint venture called Heartmore, which she described as a global inspirational lifestyle and wellness company that pulled together her intellectual property rights for books, film rights, and other branded products. Morley, the founder of the asset management company Guggenheim Capital, quickly raised $5 million for her various business ventures, including a children's TV show. He began to advise her on her personal financial affairs and was made president of the Sarah Ferguson Foundation. She and her daughters bonded with Morley, his wife, and 3 children, and the two families spent much time together at his home in Long Island and Saint-Tropez. But rumors soon began to circulate that they were having an affair. It was said started by Sarah, jealous of Andrew's relationship with Everhart. Sarah had launched her own brand of luxury household goods in America. Her Duchess Originals, a play on Prince Charles's Duchy Originals, included teaspoons and bed linen. She was on the books of 21st century speakers, charging $55,000 a speech, plus first-class expenses for 2. There was talk she might compete in Dancing with the Stars, the American version of Strictly Come Dancing, with her star turn the tango. A senior TV industry executive said that success could make her a household name in the U.S. In April 2007, Fergie was paid $500,000 to give 5 talks, written for her by one of Bill Clinton's former speechwriters, on how she had turned her life around by tile manufacturer I hate it when they take a word and Porcelanosa, which had hired the Queen Mary II for a 6-day crossing from Southampton to New York. It also covered the cost of her entourage, which included a hairdresser, personal trainer, makeup artist, 2 assistants, a ghostwriter, 4 staff from Heartmore, and a male business friend. Her financial woes seemed behind her. In March 2007, the Duke accompanied his friend, Johann Ilyich, on a private visit to Guyana. Ilyich was a former CEO of sports brand Head? I don't know. Some of these names, I'm like, what? A whole brand just called Head? and Conservative Party Deputy Treasurer. Sorry, I am stuttering and stammering today. Who was looking into the viability of an ecotourism venture, as well as possibilities to gain a foothold in the sporting goods market in Brazil, South America, and the Caribbean. The previous year, he had bought 400,000 acres in the heart of the Amazon rainforest from a logging company in Brazil. Why the United Kingdom's Special Representative for International Trade and Investment was accompanying him is not clear, but from Guyana, the Duke went on to Brazil on behalf of UKTI, touring various energy installations and meeting the president, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. In Sao Paulo, he opened the Prince Andrew Theatre, a new state-of-the-art building that housed the office of the Cultura Inglesa, the British Consulate General and the British Council, as well as a library, exhibition galleries, a restaurant, and theatre. Norinka Ford, wife of the president of the Cultura Inglesa of Sao Paulo, remembered the occasion, as Andrew was ushered into the theatre, taking a seat in the front row beside her. If she was expecting HRH to initiate a conversation, she was to be mistaken. Prince Andrew sat stony-faced and did not address me or the person on his left, she said. We sat in silence. They watched a band play Beatles songs, but when it came time for Andrew to make a speech, he was very scathing about the Brazilian band, saying they should stick to playing Brazilian music. After the unveiling of the plaque, they went to a reception, where a group of eminent Brazilians were to be presented to the Duke, among them many well-known TV personalities. As he was being ushered towards the selected group, Andrew stopped to chat to a few people en route. However, before Ford was able to introduce him to the VIPs, the Duke decided he had had enough. He turned on his heel and headed for the exit, with the British ambassador and the rest of his entourage running after him, trying to call the cars and outriders and alert security. Norinka was left with the task of soothing the disappointed and some very angry celebrities. This is obviously just a tiny incident, she recalled, but I always thought that it gave an insight into the kind of person he was. If something was boring or did not interest him, he would brush it aside without a thought, as to how it may have upset people. Andrew's travel arrangements continued to generate bad publicity. After he hired a helicopter costing £6,000 to attend the Farnborough Air Show 17 miles away, when a car could have traveled there in 30 minutes. In February 2007, it was revealed he had used the Queen's flight, costing the taxpayer £4,000 to drop him off en route to London on his way back from a conference on renewable energy, in Rome to go skiing in Verbier. A Buckingham Palace spokesman insisted the Geneva detour fell within the official royal travel guidelines. It was later reported that he had made a donation to a green company to cover his carbon footprint, but when pressed, his spokesman admitted it was just £30. Sir, I just feel like these people are on another planet. And what's interesting is that I have I don't envy them one small bit. There is not a single thing that these people are doing that I wish I could be doing. Stung by the criticisms of his expenses, the Duke told The Independent, in terms of the return on investment to the UK, bearing in mind I am part of a number of people, I would suggest that £500,000 is cheap at the price. He's so arrogant. Press briefings from his office claimed that of his 446 royal engagements in 2006, 293 were business-related and that companies were keen to use him. Various CEOs were trooped out to support his work. Peter Barlow, finance director of International Power, a FTSE top 100 firm worth £6.5 billion, felt the prince had exceeded his expectations and was impressed by his involvement in trying to help clinch a £1.5 billion contract with the Philippines. Though the deal was ultimately won by a Japanese firm, the prince did everything in his powers to help through his contacts. He has helped us win £500 million of business in the last few years, said Paul Lester, chief executive of engineering and services firm VT Group. Most of that came in orders for naval ships. I don't like to use the word, but this is what he is. He's a sorry, just spit all over my book. He's a super salesman. He is a team player. Was it single-handed? Absolutely not. Does he make a difference? Absolutely. The CNN journalist Richard Quest, who accompanied Andrew on a trip to Kazakhstan, was equally impressed, having followed him from breakfast through to a delegation dinner in the evening. Andrew was able to get you access you don't get with an ordinary person. He met the president. We saw business leaders, oil fields. He went to a hospital that the British Council had been helping. While the Duke wasn't a philosopher like his brother, his 20 years in the Royal Navy made him uniquely qualified for the task, said Quest. Rolls-Royce executive Sir John Rose felt the Duke had a real grasp of the importance and potential of engineering, helped enormously by the fact that he knows Rolls-Royce firsthand from his service in the Royal Navy, as a pilot who flew Rolls-Royce-powered helicopters. Asked in 2024 if he still stood by those comments, Rose, now retired, replied, "No comment." Oh, all of this is ridiculous. I'll tell you what, I'll be glad to be done this book. I have just about had it up to my gills. All right. This chapter is entitled The Dukes of Hazzard. Well, it's hardly more than a page. The net was closing in on Jeffrey Epstein. In March 2005, a woman had contacted Palm Beach police claiming her 14-year-old stepdaughter had been taken to Epstein's mansion where she had been paid $300 to undress and give the financier a massage. 14? You know, I don't know how to word this, without sounding creepy, and I don't mean to sound creepy. What I mean is that I can understand when a man who doesn't know a girl's age finds her attractive, because, some girls, girls mature quickly, and some girls at 17 look like they're 25. Meanwhile, the boys that are 17 look like they're 14. You know what I mean? So it can be tricky. Speaking as a woman who was obviously once a teenage girl, it can be at that 16 to 18, 19 was a tricky time, because there were a lot of times that I was approached by men who thought that I was, 21, 22, and I was 17. And then they'd find out and be like, oh my God, and they're running away, right? So on one hand, I understand when, a guy is like, oh my gosh, who's that? Because, like I said, sometimes, I was one of those girls. I looked like I was in my 20s, but I was 17 years old. Okay, I get that. But then, sir, you better run away once you know, right? What I don't get is this grown-ass man wanting this 14-year-old girl. A 14, and obviously it's because it's not because he's attracted to women. It's because he's literally attracted to children. And that is just, ugh. It just fills me with so much rage. I can't even tell you. Okay. Okay. An FBI investigation was mounted, which revealed, after interviewing several girls, a search of the house and its rubbish bins, evidence that 40 teenage girls as young as 14 had regularly been brought to the villa, many flown in from abroad, to give Epstein and his guests sexual massages. We don't even know how deep this goes. Keep your kids close. 14 months after 14 months later, Palm Beach police recommended that Epstein be charged with 4 counts of unlawful sex with minors and 1 count of sexual abuse. And in July 2006, he was arrested and charged, but only on the lesser offense of procuring a minor for prostitution and solicitation of a prostitute. Defended by a team of lawyers, including Harvard law professor Alan Dershowitz, Epstein was found guilty solely on the second charge. In June 2007, the FBI investigation, Operation Leap Year, produced a 53-page indictment, but Epstein's lawyers negotiated immunity from the charges on the grounds of Epstein's claimed intelligence links. It was against this background that examination of the relationship between the financier and the Duke of York began to appear in the press. On 1st of June 2007, the Evening Standard published an article, "The Duke of Hazards," outlining how Andrew had stayed with Jeffrey Epstein, and in turn invited him to Windsor Castle in Sandringham, and how, according to Florida police, the stairs to Epstein's bedroom were lined with photographs of naked girls, and 2 cameras had been found hidden in clocks. In September, it was reported that Epstein, having pleaded guilty to soliciting underage girls for sex, was likely to spend 15 months behind bars. The Mail on Sunday carried the story of Johanna Soberg, who had been recruited 6 years previously as an occasional home help for Epstein, but, after he had paid her college fees, made the down payment on her house, and funded her to train as a hairdresser and masseuse, had been induced to perform various sexual services for him. She recounted being introduced to Andrew at Epstein's 7-story Manhattan townhouse at Easter 2001. Ghislaine Maxwell had produced a latex puppet of Andrew from a television program, Spitting Image. They had posed for a picture with Virginia Roberts. Andrew sat on another chair. I sat on his lap, and he put his hand on my breast. Ghislaine put the puppet hand on Virginia's breast, then Andrew put his hand on mine. It was a great joke. Everyone laughed. Soberg soon realized the circles within which Epstein moved. I would be massaging him and he'd be on the phone and hang up and say, "Oh, that was Kate Blanchett." Or, "I was on the phone with Clinton." Clinton is definitely a friend of his. There's women in on this too. Honestly, you know what I think? I think that when people get to a certain level of wealth and prestige, there's nowhere to go but down. I remember my dad once worked for this company when I was a kid, and he left because he felt that there was something else he was supposed to do with his life. And a couple years later, this company went public, and they became so rich. And every once in a while, over the years, his boss would call him and ask him to come back. And he'd say, "I have more money than I know what to do with. This could be you, blah, blah, blah." And then I remember about 10 years after it all happened, he called my dad and he said, "I have so much money that I can do whatever I want. And I'm bored. There's nothing I can't do now." And I think that some people get to this point. And what do you do when everything in the world is open to you? How do you get a thrill? Well, I think some people go to very dark places. And they go to places where no one should be. Because it's the only way to get their kicks, I think there's more women involved in this than we even know of. In September 2007, Sunninghill, which the Queen had given as a wedding gift to her son and had been on the market for 5 years, was sold to Unity Assets Corporation, based in the British Virgin Islands. The sale was negotiated by a wealthy Kazakh businessman, Kines Ragashev, and this name is hard, Imangali Tazmagambetov. There's too many syllables in that. Ragashev's Rakashev's father-in-law and mayor of Astana. The buyer, it emerged 3 years later, was actually Timur Kulabayev, a billionaire oil and gas tycoon and son-in-law of the president of Kazakhstan, Nursultan Nazarbayev, whom Andrew knew well from his countless official and private visits to the country, most recently in May when he had gone goose shooting with Nazarbayev. On that occasion, the UK's trade envoy had been seen at a bar called Soho in Almaty with senior executives of Kazmunagas, the state oil and gas company, of which Kulabayev had been vice president. According to a witness, Andrew spent much of the evening talking to a striking Russian-looking woman with long black hair. He was totally engrossed. I was surprised to see him there, as Soho can be very sleazy at night. The intermediary for the sale had been Goga Ashkenazi, whose son, born in 2007, had been fathered by Kulabayev. In June, days after the exchange of contracts for the property, she had been Andrew's guest at Ascot and was introduced to the Queen. There was some surprise that Kulabayev had paid £3 million more than the £12 million asking price, though there had been no other bids, and there were suspicions that there might be more behind the transaction. Buckingham Palace was quick to put out a statement. The sale of Sunninghill Park was a straight commercial transaction between the trust which owned the house and the trust which bought it. There were no sordid deals and absolutely no arrangement from the Duke of York to benefit otherwise or to commit to any other commercial arrangement. Any suggestion otherwise is completely false. We can't be clearer that there is absolutely no impropriety, and to suggest the Duke has personally benefited from his public work in Kazakhstan is utterly untrue. Methinks the lady doth protest too much. There's no way. No one is going to pay £3 million over the asking price if there are no other bids. That's ridiculous. Unless they're saying, we'll throw this in. Was there more property that they wanted thrown in? But then they would have said it. They would have said, well, the actual reason is because, beep, bop, boop. This, that, and the other was thrown in. But they didn't say that. They just said, there's no impropriety happening. And to suggest it, the old saying, if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck and walks like a duck, it's probably a duck. In 2009, Nazarbayev's son-in-law, Rakit Aliyev, once deputy foreign minister and security chief, but who had fallen out with the president, published a book, The Godfather-in-Law, The Real Documentation, claiming the house deal had been a sweetener for Andrew. According to Aliyev, who mysteriously died 6 years later in an Austrian prison awaiting trial on charges of murder, Prince Andrew was not hired, but on a case-by-case basis, when something is wrong, when it is necessary to get some information, or any other business of the president's in the UK, Prince Andrew could be asked to do something, or to clarify something, or to know something. Does that count as spying? A few years later, there were threats to call Andrew to give evidence in a court case, after claims that the house had been bought with laundered money. In 2010, it emerged that Kulabayev had been advised by his surveyor, Mark Cohen, that the tired and outdated home lacked the wow factor and was worth only about $8 million on the open market and as little as $6.4 million at auction. Mr. Kulabayev has consistently denied accusations he laundered money and rebutted claims he paid over the asking price for Sunninghill Park. The following year, it was alleged that Andrew had used a complicated tax avoidance scheme to avoid paying 40% capital gains tax, thereby saving himself up to £7 million. Though gifted by the Queen, the lease was in her name, and Andrew had never, contrary to royal briefings, personally owned the property. Royal advisers had paid just over £12,000 to buy the freehold of the property from the Crown Estate, which had owned it for the benefit of the nation. The sale was signed off by the Queen's personal lawyer, Mark Bridges, and Sir Alan Reed. Keeper of the Queen's privy purse, acting as trustees for a trust set up in 2000 called the Sunninghill Park Settlement. The beneficiaries of the trust remained secret. The question was who now owned it. If it was Andrew, then he should have paid capital gains tax. At the beginning of 2008, Andrew visited Egypt and the United Arab Emirates as trade envoy. He took Beatrice, then on her gap year, paying her first-class fare, but with her security bill estimated at £40,000 covered by the taxpayer. An 8-day visit in March to the Middle East concluded with 2 days in Bahrain, watching the Grand Prix. Later that month, he was in India for 6 days at a cost of £20,500. In May, Richard Alderman, the head of the Serious Fraud Office, was summoned to Buckingham Palace for a briefing on its investigation into bribery allegations surrounding various British aerospace defence contracts. The case handlers, according to one source, thought the request was well out of order. The investigations had been suspended after complaints by the Saudi royals and claims by Tony Blair, then Prime Minister, that it jeopardized crucial intelligence sharing arrangements. A few weeks later, discussions that Andrew, again accompanied by Beatrice, had held with major British investors in Kyrgyzstan were made public when The Guardian published a leaked diplomatic cable from the U.S. ambassador who was present. The talks covered the investment climate for Western firms in the country, the problems of corruption and Russian and Chinese influence in the region. The ambassador, Tatiana Goler, reported to Washington how the Duke had railed at British anti-corruption investigators who had had the idiocy of scuttling the Al Yamana deal with Saudi Arabia. She remembered thinking Andrew was rather disarming, if naive, to speak so openly to businessmen and diplomats he did not know well. He is a loose cannon. I just can't believe that the poor queen, it was like, yes, this is the right appointment for him. Yeah. He should have been relegated to opening, parks and things like that. Here, cut this ribbon. He should have never been given anything that put him into contact with any sort of businessmen or political contacts. He should have been, I don't know, opening shopping malls. Good grief. Among the Duke's candid comments were his belief that this was a reincarnation of the 19th century Great Game, which he claimed of Britain that this time we aim to win. Goler's report described the Duke's reaction to a comment from a British businessman that despite the overwhelming might of the American economy compared to ours, American and British investment in Kyrgyzstan was broadly similar. No surprise there, snapped the Duke. The Americans don't understand geography. Never have. In the UK, we have the best geography teachers in the world. Well, he's not wrong that Americans don't understand geography. I would say Canadians might be the tiniest bit better, but not by much, And I think that the Brits teaching geography well probably comes from the fact that at one point they basically owned the entire world, right? So there's a lot going on there. So yeah, I can't take too much offense at that because I think that's fairly true, and I would say the same of Canada. I did grow up in the U.S., so anyway. So don't come at me because my family still lives in the U.S. I'm halfsies. Okay. The Business Secretary Vince Cable said Andrew's remarks were not helpful. And there were, and there were calls from anti-corruption campaigners for him to resign. But the Duke's approach had its supporters, especially when the Al Yamana contracts were worth £43 billion to Britain over 20 years. Yowza, I can't even comprehend that amount. I can't comprehend that number at all. The financial journalist Martin van der Weyer thought him more charismatic than Charles and able to make off-the-cuff jokes, which might not all work, but that made him a crowd pleaser and, in a quite theatrical way, a pro. He knows he's there to perform. In March 2008, a television program, The Duchess in Hull, aired on British TV. 5 million viewers watched the Duchess live among a family of 6 in Hull and advised them how to live more healthily on a budget of £80 per week. What would she know about such a thing? Like her whole life. How in the world? She would know the first that put me in there, Someone like me. I can go in and teach you how. Like, good grief. I'm like, what am I living on now? I'm living on less than 80 pounds. I mean, 80 pounds per week. Is that like on groceries? Because with my brain, I'm so sorry, you all. Exchange. There it is. With the exchange rate, let's find out. Now, don't be annoyed with me, okay? You're all my friends, and you're here at book club with me. So sometimes we're gonna take a little detour. All right. So pounds to Canadian dollars. Oh my gosh, guys, I'm so hungry right now. Okay. Currency converter. They're still British pounds, right? Or did they... There it is, pound sterling. Oops. All right, so so 80 pounds sterling comes to $147.85 Canadian. I could do it. I do it. So, but anyway, my whole point being, I know I'm off on a tangent, but my whole point being, like, what in the world? Like, that just baffles me. Okay, how to live more healthily on a budget of 80 pounds a week. Sam Brick, the producer, who later quit over her concerns about the program, remembered Sarah's initial nerves. She said, I won't have to eat what they eat, will I? Like, no, Sarah, don't worry. You won't have to eat ramen noodles. Instant ramen noodles. Macaroni and cheese. Can you imagine? Like, I don't know about where you all are, but groceries in Canada are wild. Like, okay, what's our minimum wage? I think our minimum wage is like $15.75. But let me tell you, like, food is expensive over here. Like, a pack of, one small whole chicken. Okay, so think about the size of a rotisserie chicken, right? So it's like, like this. I can get a cooked rotisserie chicken at Walmart. I think it might be $12.99 or $11.99. If I go and I buy that same size chicken that's raw for me to cook at home, it's going to be $20. So every once in a while, they'll go on sale for like $5. And let me tell you, it's like a joke among my friends. Like, how many chickens are in the freezer? Because I will load up. I'll be like, I got 5 chickens in the freezer. You know, you get 5 chickens for, the cost of one normally, or, roughly. All right, let's keep going. I'm just yapping at you. The Duchess also wanted the recipes for the program to be cooked either by her personal cook or the London restaurant Cipriani. In the end, celebrity chef Jean-Christophe Novelli produced them. Brick found the experience strange and sad, saying of Sarah, "She's desperate to be a success and to be taken seriously, but her world is completely bizarre. You have to actually experience it to really know what it's like." Yeah, no kidding. Like, Sarah Ferguson is the last person that I'd be like, how do I make ends meet? Like, how do I feed my family? While the Duchess did succeed in changing the family's eating habits, with patriarch Mick Sargerson saying he had lost a stone and had a son who now power walks to school and another who eats carrots, that son had also seen the way charity was being used to enhance Ferguson's image. He claimed it was just a publicity stunt. Shortly afterwards, the Duchess approached the supermarket Asda with a view to marketing her own range of healthy eating products. Accompanied by documentary maker Chris Rogers, in September she journeyed to Turkey to highlight conditions inside its state-run institutions for unwanted and disabled children. She had contacted Rogers a few months earlier, moved by his investigations as an ITN correspondent and keen to use her profile to highlight the situation in Turkey's institutions for special needs children, which Mental Disability Rights International had recently described as tantamount to torture. Eugenie, now 18, joined the party. They visited the Zeytinburnu Rehabilitation Center, an orphanage in Istanbul, where young children were kept in straitjackets and tied by hands or ankles to the crib's metal bars. Next, the Saray Institution, for 700 children in the suburbs of Ankara. Refused official access, the Duchess went disguised in dark glasses and wig, while Rogers relied on the fake ID of an aid worker. The sight that greeted them was horrific. Children dressed in bedclothes and rags, and everywhere showing signs of distress, with many exhibiting the awful, violent rocking of the institutionalized. When they visited the adults, many were tied to benches like dogs, or corralled by tight nooses around their hands that pinned their arms behind their backs. The stench was unbearable. From there they traveled to Romania, where UNICEF estimated that each year 10,000 babies were dumped in Romanian hospitals. This time Beatrice joined them. That November, ITV showed a Tonight special, Duchess and Daughters, Their Secret Mission, which was watched by over 6 million people in the UK, and many more when it subsequently broadcast around the world. It caused a diplomatic row, with Turkish officials accusing the Duchess of a smearing campaign against the country and claiming she did not have a permit to film and was in breach of its strict press laws. Boo-hoo. Turkey sought to extradite her, and she faced the possibility of a prison sentence of up to 22 years. A leaked cable from the U.S. Embassy in Ankara suggested that the then Foreign Secretary, David Miliband, had tried to heal the rift by inviting his Turkish counterpart to his constituency home, saying the Duchess could not be controlled. Oh, please. I'm sorry. I just have a really hard time being like, oh no, she was out of line. Like, I don't know if she was doing it because she actually cared or because, it was a good publicity stunt. But regardless, I don't feel sorry at all. The fact that these people are like, she shouldn't be doing that. Oh no, get her out. Like, no, you just don't want her to, you don't want the rest of the world to see what you're actually up to. You're up to no good. You're up to garbage. You're treating people like, I wouldn't treat a dog I didn't like in that way. So, good on Sarah. Because you know what? Personally, I think that takes some guts, in my opinion. I'm just looking up on YouTube now to see if Duchess and Daughters is on here. It's on YouTube. It is. Okay. You know what? I will link it in the description. I can do that much for you since I'm not adding pictures today. And again, please remember, if you prefer pictures and you're like, I would rather you post every other day, but have all the pictures of all the names and the places, because if that's very, very helpful to you, I will do it. And you know what? I'll do you one better. If you tell me, okay, it has to be more than one person though. That's the deal. If you tell me that that's what you like more, not only will I start doing that and I'll have to post every other day, but I will re-upload these with the pictures. Okay? That's dedication. That's what I will do for you. All right. Let's keep going. Duchess and Daughters. Oh yeah, could not be controlled. There were further controversies. In the program, the Duchess had pledged money to help build a clinic for poor women in a town called Tinca. But a newspaper investigation months later revealed that no funds had been forthcoming from her foundation. Her spokeswoman stated, the Sarah Ferguson Foundation has, as pledged, secured a donation of £278,620 from a philanthropist, and this is in the process of being transferred from the Canadian authorities to Romania. She would not identify the philanthropist or specify when the funds would be transferred. There were also suggestions the program had been staged, and complaints had been made by the Romanian official responsible for vulnerable children to the television standards of Watchdog.com. A year later, the charity had still not received all the promised monies. Well, had they received some? I wish it would be more specific. The Duchess's charitable activities had already come under scrutiny the previous month when, surrounded by wealthy businessmen and celebrities, she launched a £1.1 billion property development in Dubai. Behind the scheme were two companies, but a charity had also been created bearing her name, with the aim of raising £500,000 for disadvantaged children in the United Arab Emirates. I wonder how many disadvantaged children are in the UAE, because my best friend grew up in Dubai, and I don't know that there's a lot of homelessness or a lot of, I don't know. I'm going to have to ask her, from her firsthand experience, because she's from, a working class family. When we think of Dubai, often we think of, the glitterati. And Dubai is run on the backs of Pakistani people. Let me tell you. Not so much anymore, because now, anyway, I don't want to say too much because I don't want people to get upset with me. But you look it up. But now they've just changed it so that I guess they've kind of cut off, they're not letting people in anymore from Pakistan. All right. Where are we? Disadvantaged children in UAE by auctioning off one of the suites in the luxury residential complex. In a press release, the Duchess announced, the plight of children is an issue close to my heart. This is a springboard for launching Sarah Selects, the charity, globally, helping children's causes all over the world. For fronting the charity, the first choice Hilary Swank had pulled out. She had been paid a 5-figure sum in expenses, which included her flight and a 2-night stay in a luxury 5-star hotel. It later emerged that the charity, which she had only agreed to front the night before it launched, was not registered, and no money was given to any cause in its name. Well, that is wild. This chapter is entitled, let me just look and see if we're almost done this section. Oh, we are. We are. Oh my goodness. We're doing good. This chapter is entitled Tarek Khatuni. Andrew's penchant for keeping the company of foreign billionaires whose business activities were not always transparent and who might use him as a trophy asset to impress others was of increasing concern. In November 2008, the Duke had taken a 4-day holiday in Tunisia, paid for by Tarek Khatuni, a convicted Libyan gun smuggler whom Andrew had first met in 2005. The lack of wisdom, I've never seen the like. Never in my life have I seen someone who's just Okay, sure. Like, it's just like he's looking for whatever he can get. Doesn't matter who it is, doesn't matter who it's connected to. He's like, yeah, if he can get a little something, bring it on. The party, which included several women, bodyguards, and assistants, went on to visit Colonel Gaddafi in Libya. Katouni was seen paying bills for the group at 2 hotels. Challenged about the trip, the Duke's spokesman said that he would be reimbursing Katouni for the private element of the visit. Oh, well, that makes everything okay then. And it was the second time Andrew had flown to North Africa to meet Katouni. In August, he had stayed for a private holiday at his villa in Sidi Bou, I don't know, Sidi Bou said, near Tunis. And Gaddafi, within the previous 3 months, had the third visit. What? I'm sorry, sometimes the sentence structure, for some reason, my brain just can't comprehend it. And Gaddafi, within the previous 3 months, and the third visit to Gaddafi in 7 months. None of them had been arranged by UK Trade and Investment, though the Duke was always accompanied by protection officers paid for by the taxpayer. Rumors circulated that he had been involved in negotiations for the release of the Lockerbie bomber Abdelbasset al-Megrahi. Through Goga Ashkenazi, Andrew had also become friendly with the 35-year-old second son of the dictator, Saif al-Islam Gaddafi, who acted as his father's fixer and whom Andrew was to meet 3 times between August 2008 and March 2009. In that month, Andrew returned to Libya, a country with huge gas and oil fields, on a week's private visit, traveling with only his bodyguard, ostensibly as a tourist looking at archaeological treasures, not a subject in which he'd previously shown great interest. If Andrew happens to get on with people on his official visits, it's only natural that he'll go back to see them at his own expense, claimed a friend. This does not mean he is feathering his own nest. He is not abusing his position as a special representative of the government. Whatever people may think, there are no side deals. I mean, I would be suspect of anyone who's hanging out with Gaddafi. Like, what? Ugh, okay. I Am Aliyev is the name of this chapter. In June 2009, it was revealed that Andrew had spent £60,000 of public money to charter a 15-seater private jet for a 3-day visit to Azerbaijan to attend the Caspian oil and gas exhibition, his 6th visit in 5 years, accompanied by a bodyguard and 2 officials. A business-class ticket direct from London to Baku would have been £1,300. Okay. This came amid continuing concerns that Andrew was becoming too close to Azerbaijan's authoritarian and corrupt president, Ilham Aliyev. A source said the president and Andrew were close friends with common interests and a shared sense of humor. Even that the Duke was always laughing at Ilham's jokes, which are usually about women. Hilarious. Through Aliyev, Andrew had met one of the country's leading oligarchs, Jahangir Askarov, who ran Azerbaijan Airlines. There were rumors that Askarov was trying to gain a foothold in Britain, and that Andrew had been advising him. Does this not make him a traitor? Like, to me, I think this makes him a traitor. But you tell me. Especially if you're from the UK, you tell me. Like, I'm in the Commonwealth, sure, and I think he's a traitor. But you tell me, if you're directly from the UK, what you think. He was to become a key business contact for the Duke. Though BP was the largest foreign investor in Azerbaijan's oil industry, and Andrew had had a series of meetings to promote British trade, one of the country's leading independent journalists, Ibrahim by Anderloo spoke for many when he said, "We just do not understand exactly what it is Andrew does, or why he needs to come here so often." Well, yeah. It is difficult. I mean, I guess maybe it doesn't make him a traitor, but I'm just like, he's connecting with so many people who have really shady backgrounds and trying to get them a foothold in his home country. Like, does that not seem like it's not good for the citizens of that country? Like, it is difficult to establish the complete story of Andrew's activities in the Central Asian Republic, as people were scared to talk because of his connections to its powerful elite. But Andrew had been coming to Azerbaijan long before he was appointed special representative. His two most active periods in the country were between 1994 and 1996 on leaves from the Royal Navy, and beginning in 2008 until 2014. During the first period, he worked closely with Mark Thatcher, son of the foreign prime minister, that guy. And the two were often seen together at a Portuguese restaurant in Baku that was primarily patronized by expatriates and known to have the most extensive wine cellar in the city. The Duke also often attended quasi-official networking events in the Azerbaijani capital, such as the monthly British Embassy drinks reception, hosted for members of the British business group at the Hyatt Regency, which also housed the embassy. Both men leased apartments in Baku, fully refurbished under contracts awarded to the local branch of the Scottish firm Morrison Construction, and at the time were involved in two projects. The first was an attempt to purchase cheap aviation fuel from That's a Freudian slip. Aviation fuel from AZAL, the Azerbaijan Airlines Company, for a Houston firm, Ameristar. The second involves supplying paper to print the new Azerbaijan passport through a subsidiary of printer Delarue. When the consignment arrived in Baku, the grade and quality was wrong, and the paper had to be scrapped. What is all this nonsense? Andrew later played a prominent role in a 2011 deal by the Baku Taxi Company to introduce 1,000 London-style taxis as part of a £16 million agreement with Manganese Bronze, a subsidiary of the London Taxi Company, LTI Limited. Andrew's lavish travel expenditure continued, even though the purpose of many of his trips was not always clear. On the evening of 14 November 2009, he arrived at Rida International Airport on a visit later not included in a list produced by the government of the Duke's overseas trade envoy trips undertaken in agreement with and in support of government objectives. It subsequently emerged that an earlier visit to Saudi Arabia in September had been paid for by his friend from Gordonston, Crown Prince Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. Through his energy company, Masdar, Al Nahyan owned 20% of the planned £3 billion London Array wind farm in the Thames estuary, which would earn the royal family a fortune, as the Crown estate was paid rental for the undersea cables, taking power from the wind farms to the mainland. Andrew attended the celebration dinner in a London restaurant where Masdar won the contract. When Masdar won the contract. It is estimated that offshore wind farms could net the royals up to £37.5 million a year, on top of earnings from the rest of the estate's £6 billion property portfolio. I don't know, but it really gets my goat when land in a country is sold to another country. Like, that really ticks me off. Like, that country doesn't care about your citizens. That country cares about making a buck. You know, they're going to do whatever they're going to do. Ugh. I don't know enough about anything to honestly say much, but it just gets my goat. I'm not very intelligent about that sort of thing. Okay. This little chapter is entitled The Duchess of the Estate, and we are almost done this section, so we'll get to the end of it. On 18 August 2009, Sarah fronted a sequel to The Duchess in Hull, The Duchess on the Estate, for which she was paid £20,000 by ITV. Followed her as she spent 10 days on a crime-ridden housing estate in Manchester. The program was panned by both critics and residents who accused her of patronizing them. No kidding. She had suggested anti-social behavior could be curbed by planting tulips and a cup of tea, and of using other people's misery to slake her thirst for publicity. Can you imagine, like, oh, this person can't stop stealing to fund their drug habit. Maybe you should make them a cup of tea. Yeah, thanks. Like, thanks. That'll fix me. Good grief. In the course of the show, she played pool and drank cider with the locals, at one point telling the camera, "You've got to live de life." What? She later added, "I could sleep anywhere, a park bench, a bedsit, a B&B," before disclosing that during the filming she had stayed at the All Seasons Guest House, a Victorian house set in lovely gardens. I could sleep on a bench. Girl, please. After a barrage of criticism from BBC Radio 5 Live listeners, one of the complaints leveled against her had been the £300,000 of taxpayers' money spent doing up one of her daughter's apartments at St. James Palace. She claimed she wanted to go and live in a hole and would never make another documentary in the UK. Sarah responded by going with Andrew to a £38 million estate set in 350 acres near Sotogrand, which, according to local rumor, had been lent rent-free for a month in exchange for helping to find a buyer from among her rich friends. It was their first holiday together without their daughters, who were at Richard Branson's home on Necker Island in the Caribbean. What? I don't understand that whole sentence. I'm like, what is going on? Like, they're divorced. They're going on a holiday together. Their girls are at Richard Branson. Like, you cannot tell me that bad stuff didn't happen to her girls. Why are they on Richard Branson's estate in the Caribbean? But it did not reflect them getting back together romantically, even if immediately after the divorce Andrew had carried a torch for her. I think that if his father had not been so set against it, he would have remarried her at one stage, said a source. They also claimed Andrew was enjoying life too much to be tied down, but that he was extraordinarily attached to Sarah. She makes him feel guilty for the breakup of the marriage. She says that it is his fault that she strayed when they were married, that it was because he neglected her. And he feels terribly guilty because there's a bit of truth in it. Maybe that's her hold over him and why he's always there to pick her up when she falls. The Duchess continued to write and endorse everything from jewelry and linen to fragrances, cutlery, and perfumed candles. One plan was to sell copies of items from her family estate in powerscored on television, having been in discussions with bosses at the shopping channel QVC. In September 2009, she announced she had signed a deal with Handmade Films, started by former Beatle George Harrison, to realize big-screen versions of 5 of her Little Red series of children's books. It was also revealed she was in talks with Tommy Hilfiger to promote some of his clothes, that St. Martin's Press would be publishing her first novel, and that she wanted to write a book about a forgetful elephant. Sarah Ferguson's 50th birthday in October 2009. She celebrated with a dinner at the Lanesborough Hotel for a dozen guests, including new best friends Lisa Marie and Priscilla Presley, Prince Andrew and her 2 daughters. was a time for personal reflection, but also public projection. To mark the occasion, she spoke to Hello, for which she was paid £50,000, admitting she was in debt by £600,000 after the end in 2008 of her Weight Watchers contract, which had eventually been worth about £2 million a year, and the collapse of her U.S.-based lifestyle business Heartmore. The Duchess was advised to file for bankruptcy, but instead took out a personal loan from the Royal Bank of Scotland to repay creditors some £750,000. Extricating herself cost her $1 million in legal fees. The Sarah Ferguson Foundation, described as the philanthropic arm of Heartmore, had been launched at a lavish fundraising dinner in 2007, with tables costing $25,000. The charity had been incorporated in Delaware. Oh my gosh, of course it was. Known as a tax shelter. And it was disclosed had paid only $737.38 in taxes. The last tax returns to be filed show that the foundation had income of $508,620, but had given grants of just $22,600, including $10,000 to Pride and Purpose, the charitable arm of Ulusaba, a private South African game reserve owned by Sir Richard Branson, and where the Duchess and her daughters had holidayed. Her spokeswoman said that grants of more than $400,000 had later been made, including to a children's home in Kenya. After the charity failed to pay its taxes, its status was downgraded to ceased good standing. Andrew's 50th birthday, which he spent skiing with his ex-wife and daughters in Verbier, was marked by his promotion to Rear Admiral and several profiles. Asked in one interview about his plans to celebrate, he replied, "Nothing big." The celebrations turned out to be an official reception at Buckingham Palace for 200 guests involved with his charities and regiments, and performances by the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra and English National Ballet. It was followed the next night by a party at St. James's Palace organized by his daughters. A home video of his life was played, and he was presented with 2 large leather-bound and hand-engraved photo albums and a silver ornament of Bendix, his Jack Russell, who had recently been put down. Andrew paid tribute in his speech to his 3 children, one being Sarah. Celebrations continued at the nightclub Annabelle's, and guests were given miniature photo albums with pictures of Andrew to take home. Okay, I can't think of anything I'd want less. Sarah gave him a miniature portrait of their daughters in pastel, for which the artist Basia Hamilton had charged her £7,000, placed in double-front silver traveling case so that Andrew could take it with him when going abroad. This is all nutso. In spite of gentle reminders, I'm sorry, I keep on getting text messages. In spite of gentle reminders from the artist for more than a year, the threats of legal action from the luxury gift firm TJK London, the bill for both picture and £4,000 case, which had Sarah's crest and the initial S engraved on the front, had not been paid by the time the story hit the press. This was not the first time the Duchess had been sued for failing to settle her bills. In April 2009, a law firm lodged a claim for an unpaid bill of £1,750 at Northampton County Court. 2 months later, a small firm of accountants in Harpenden, M.J. Brooks, put in a claim for £18,132 at Central London County Court, and the Duchess finally settled an outstanding £2,117 bill for Prince with Shades, a family-run photographic business in Woking. After it had gone to Gifford County Court the previous September. In September 2009, it was reported she owed several £1,000s to a Malibu-based spirit guide known as Anamika, who lived on a 10-acre estate called the Sakkara Temple of Awakening. The following month, it was claimed she owed £17,000 to Richard Owen for 2 months' work in February and March to help build her brand Fergie. Eventually, all the bills were settled. In April 2010, it emerged that the Duchess was being sued by Mayfair solicitors Davenport Lyons for £200,000 for work they had done on a deal to turn her children's books into an animated television series and to create and protect a trademark under which she planned to market a range of lifestyle goods on QVC. Reminders and a request to discuss a credible payment plan for the 8 unpaid invoices from April to July 2009 had been ignored. In October 2009, the Duchess had agreed to pay £30,000 with a further £50,000 to come, but no payment materialized. It was, however, a sting operation filmed by the News of the World that was to bring about one of the biggest crises of her life. And that ends this section, and tomorrow we will begin the next section entitled Trapped. But let me go back here and see how many sections we have left. So we have Trapped, The Fight Back, and Disgrace. We have 3 sections left. So that's pretty great. We've got this much left. So just a few more days. All right. Thank you so much for being with me today. I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day. And remember, please comment, please like, please subscribe, please hit the bell. Please let me know, do you prefer going back to with pictures and me posting every other day as opposed to every day, or do you just, you let me know. Yes, that's all I have. Okay, thank you so much for being with me. I appreciate you so much. See you tomorrow.